got. And the third image is someone that actually
Thank you very much, James. That was pretty much our whole talk. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Obviously, it's the end of Friday. We know we're all ready to get to the bar, but we are the last speech, so please wait and hear what we say. It's really good. I'm Niven, this is Ross, and we are design engineers at Andiamo. We design orthoses that get 3D printed for children with disabilities. So it's pretty much our way at trying to get into heaven. Globally, there are around 100 million people who need orthotics every year, and only 80% of them have access or the finance to get some. Sorry, other way around. 80% don't have the access to it. Orthoses are different to prosthetics in that instead of replacing the limb, they work with the limb to position the foot correctly and help the muscle.
So as James very eloquently put, Naveed was sat in the audience in 2013, and this is Chris Thorpe's presentation about a 3D printed train. So he travelled to Wales, used a 3D scanner to make a replica, a scale replica with 3D printing of this tiny train called Winifred. Now this is little Winifred, sat on big Winifred, presented in 2013. And as it was Monki Gras, of course there was some beer added to this equation, and apparently, by all accounts, there was lots of beer added to this equation before Naveed went home that night and rambled to his wife, Samiya, about this idea he had for this new company. Oh.
So our founders are Lee, Samiya, and Naveed. Oh.
Very sorry about that.
We'll send you the presentation. We've got much clearer photos. Samiya and Naveed had a son, Diamo. Diamo was born with cerebral palsy and sadly passed away at the age of 9. So, as James said, they know very well the struggles that families have to go through every time that they need a new orthosis or need their new one that's badly fitting, replacing. And sometimes this can take up to 6 months. And if that's stopping you from leaving your own home, it's simply not acceptable. A quote that Sammy has told us before is that Diamo lived 9 years of his short life in badly fitting orthoses.
So if you look here at the original process that is used to make the orthotic devices, a clinician will use a special bandage to wrap the patient's leg. This is then cut off after it's set hard. It's filled with plaster, and that's basically used as a copy of the child's leg. The technician will then drape a hot plastic over this cast, stretch it around the heel, and then it will be trimmed to the clinician's prescription. Now, the problems with this are, there's a few problems along this journey. Diamo in particular found the casting particularly distressing. And some of our patients have very sensitive skin, so this is really not the best way of taking a cast. And then actually when the technician comes to work on it, if they make any mistake, you've got to start again. But it's also not exactly precise.
So what we do at Andiamo is we 3D scan the leg. We use CAD software. The prescription is uploaded by the clinician to our Andiamo platform. We selective laser sintering print the leg, and these are rigorously checked before our first fitting appointment with them. We use 3D scanning because there's no messy casting, it's an easy transfer of data, it's highly accurate, and it's far less intrusive for the child. We can then use this information, put it into our CAD software, and we can make the orthosis around that leg scan. And because it's CAD, we have so much better control of the surfaces that we use in the device. It gives us the opportunity to automate things, and then we can use finite element analysis to make sure that it's strong enough. As we all know by now, 3D printing is highly customizable, so it means that every device that we print is just for that one child, perfectly fits them. And it also gives us the ability to strengthen certain areas while making other ones a little bit more flexible. And we can give confidence to our clinicians because we can provide them some sheets, a bit of data showing this is what you've asked for, and this is exactly how we've given it to you.
So at Andiamo, I mean, we've had some great successes over the years. As James mentioned, the racer video, which is on YouTube, is brilliant. We're not going to lie, we've had some errors, some failures, but today we're going to talk about somewhere in between that, about the challenges we face every day as the design engineer team, and also there's a few of our members in the audience today. We're going to talk about how we try to improve the journey right the way across. So we have to think about the patients, the parents, the clinicians, and the technicians. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. And basically, the term one size fits all is the least applicable thing for us at Andiamo. A great example of this is the first stage in our process, the scanning. Now, similar to what Norman mentioned before, if we put bad data in, we get bad products out. If we have a bad scan, we're going to have a bad orthosis, no matter how good the technology is or how good the technician is. So as you can see here is a perfect scan. This is someone who stayed very still for approximately 1 minute or so that it takes to take a full scan of a child's leg. This one, not so much. Now, the movement can be for one or two reasons. In this case, the patient had severe spasticity in her foot. So she was constantly spasming as we were trying to take the cast. And I'm actually going to talk a bit more about this case in particular on the following slide. Now, the other thing about kids is they're kids. And no matter, I'm sure many parents in this room will agree, kids won't always stay still. And I mean, I know myself, if someone asks me to keep my foot still, the first thing I want to do is move my foot. So what we've actually found is we've got a few little techniques to try to get them to stay still, but they don't always work for all children. One example was Paw Patrol. A very popular cartoon, and for one child, he was transfixed. As soon as we put it on the tablet, that was it. We could have gone away and made a cup of tea, come back, and he would have still been sat there perfectly still. We tried this on another girl, and she just got so engrossed in it. She was dancing up and down, and it was an absolute nightmare. So yeah, certainly we've got a few different techniques, and it's all about trying it. But basically speaking to them and just letting them know before that it's okay. Like, if we have to do it again a few times, it's fine. Just take your time. Now, this is the scanning question from the previous page. This one here is the very messy scan. Now, once we got it back to the studio, by the way, all these 4 scans of legs pointing towards you. Once we got back to our office, we cleaned it up, and it looked good. It was a nice, smooth leg. But then when we compared it to the right leg, we thought something looked very off here. And actually, through the movement as we're scanning, we ended up actually taking a double leg, in effect. We've got 2 calves there, so it's an extra fat calf. So we just can't work from it. Thankfully, we spoke to the patient whilst we were there, and we knew it was going to be difficult. So we said, would you mind if we took a bandage cast as well? So we actually reverted to the old process, and then we've scanned that. By the way, we put a pole in the top just so we can walk it around. It's not a part of the bone, as someone else has thought. So then we scanned that, and what's I think really important is we know what the solution is at the end. We know what makes a good orthoses. But to get there, there's going to be many different routes. And we don't want to replace the old process. We want to take the best attributes of it. And we certainly don't want to lose any of the skill and expertise involved that the technicians and the clinicians have built up over the years. So we want to cherry pick the best attributes of the old process and complement it with the new process as well, to always provide the best solutions for our patients. But to provide those, we need to have good scans, and with good scans, you need good technology. So here are 2 of the ones that are currently on the market. This is the one which we often use, or we currently use, and you're actually going to be able to have a go on these in the workshop later. This is the next generation, which is an all-in-one unit, so it's a bit more easy for the scanner. But then we began thinking about how can we make this really fun for the kid. So over a coffee break one day, we kind of just began thinking a bit more crazy, and how we could actually incorporate it into these guys. And we loved the idea of having Wally's eyes as the scanner, and as the child would sit down, Wally would just drive around and scan the patient. We thought that'd be great. But then we thought about, well, there's many people involved in this. Now, obviously we want to make the appointment nice and pleasant, but it's the clinician who has to do this multiple times a day, every day. So we need to make sure that it's perfect for them. So what actually is, in effect, a great solution is this. It's a bolt-on to a traditional iPad. This one's about £400. The quality's not quite there yet, but they're bringing out the next generation, which should actually be able to match our specs that we require. Now compare that with 20,000 and 6,000, it becomes a bit more, or certainly a lot more appealing to the clinician. But it's a familiar interface. But then what's great is we can also upload straight to our digital platform. Just saving time. Now, that's the main thing. If we can say to a clinician, we can save you 5 minutes per patient, that's huge. If we can say you don't need to worry about an expensive scanner, that's also a benefit.
So we can do all of this perfectly. We can have orthoses that have the correct prescription, and they can fit so snugly on the leg. But if they don't want to wear it, they're not going to wear it. So how do we convince a child that this lovingly crafted device that has been printed with state-of-the-art 3D scanners, rigorously tested, thing that we've spent so long trying to craft just for them, isn't just another chunk of plastic that's going to make them look different? I spoke to a young girl fairly recently. She told us that she wore orthoses from the ages of 3 to 16. So we got some of ours out to show her. And when she saw them, it was almost as though she shuddered from all the bad memories. So how do we convince a child that ours is going to be better than all these other ones that they've worn that have scarred them so much that the thought of wearing one makes them want to cry? We also spoke to a father of one of our girls that we help, and we asked him what one of his frustrations are, what his biggest frustration is with his daughter wearing an orthosis. And bear in mind, this guy is he's big, he's 6 foot tall, covered in tattoos, and he said 9-year-old girls are mean. So what if it's not just the mind of the child that we need to open up? What if it's the mind of the people around them? What if it's the mind of the parent? If the parent doesn't care, then why should the kid? One of the most important tools that we have in this industry is the willpower of the parent to provide for their child. Please wear them.
So the actual very first device that Andiamo created was this one. Now, when we tried to think about how we can elevate this from just being another medical product, something a bit special, the designer looked towards the comic books and the idea that instead of it being this medical device, it's armor. It's Iron Man armor, and it's really exciting. I think it's great, but it's great for one child. Now, Naveed and Samiya never set out to help just one child. It was to help everyone. 2.6 million people go through the orthotics industry each year in the UK alone, and that is increasing at 6% every year. So how do we do this at scale?
But personalization at scale is a challenge. These white orthoses went to one girl who loves them because they're white and they match with her school socks and you can barely see them. Whereas other kids love being able to pick out their favorite color. If you pick up your device and it's bright pink and some girl can show it off to her friends, it's that first step towards making it less of a medical device and something just a little bit special. So we can add cool colors. We can add cool colors and cutouts and make the shapes look cool, but we know we still have a long way to go. There's been some really great work in the world of prosthetics. On the left, we see some passive devices. These are highly realistic, can be your exact color tone, skin tone, and you know what? If you want to paint the nails, then you can. The next one, I think, is a bit of an oxymoron because it's passive, so people don't want it to look like a prosthetic. However, he's covered it with a tattoo, so I'm not sure whether he wants to draw attention to it or not. As we move further to the right, we see more 3D printing. And if you don't know this performer and model, Victoria Modesta, absolutely look her up because she is so cool and has the coolest prostheses I've ever seen. But let's take this back to what we do at Andiamo. We can pick these cool colors and shapes and cutouts, as I said, and hope that the child likes it. What if it were you? Would you rather have a passive device or one that's eye-catching? What if you're back at school? Would you rather have an orthosis that is camouflage and you can barely see, or one that stands out? I mean, how many of you guys today have seen that I'm wearing an orthosis? Pretty dashing, right? This is black. A lot of people don't notice. I've walked home in it a few times and I don't see any eyes looking down. I think the next one I want to get a bright blue one. Cobalt blue, my favorite color. Please, can I get that one?
So here are two great examples of other people working in the medical industry who have really elevated their own products. And I'm sure you're going to be able to see how they've inspired us. The first one is at a children's hospital in Barcelona. Now, MRI machines can be quite scary. They can be loud, claustrophobic. And the team at this hospital faced a very similar problem, that when the children move, they get a bad scan. So instead of just making the device, the machine faster or anything like that, they actually changed the whole experience for the child. So instead of saying, "Are you ready for your MRI appointment?" they say, "Commander Jack, are you ready for your mission into space?" And they expect him to go, and they carry him through with they're all dressed up in space gear. And they get on this bed, and it's no longer this scary experience. It's something that's quite exciting. And then they're told, "You've got to be quiet. There's aliens around," and all stuff like this. And it's brilliant because now they've changed the experience from being something negative to being something positive and exciting. And then they get the best results. They get a good MRI scan. And then this one. Now, I always kind of think this is beautiful because it's the other end of the spectrum. This probably took a design and engineering team months, and they've done a fantastic job of decking out a whole suite. But at Leeds Hospital, this radiographer, Lebke Marston, does brilliant work just as a hobby. So the radiography mask, which it must be terrifying for anyone, let alone a child, you have to put it on, it's quite encapsulating. She goes home and paints them to look like superheroes or football kits or Disney princesses or whatever the child wants. And I love the contrast between the person who does it as a hobby and then the design firms. But either way, they're getting the best solution.
So we've taken inspiration from this, and we have designed some packaging. A box. Instead of throwing your orthosis in your backpack on the way home, you get a little box to take it home in, and you get that feeling you get when you walk home, you walk out of a shop and you've just bought a new pair of shoes. You're like, yeah, all right, nice. I'm going to wear these on Saturday, I'm going to look great. But it's not just a box, because inside you can follow our character around into all these different scenes, and we've paired this with care instructions, and these get given out at the fitting appointment. And I've been told a few times that often this child is now more interested in this instructions booklet than they are on their new device. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you. And suddenly it's not just another clinical appointment. As I've said, we know we have a long way to go, but here are some quotes that show that we think we're on the right track. I think they speak for themselves. And also, I know we're not supposed to have favorites, but Jack is so cool. Like, the coolest kid.
Okay. Well, since 2013, Andiamo has been on quite a journey. We now have 26 employees. We have a second office in Poland. We've helped over 100 families. We like to think we've generated a lot of smiles along the way. We certainly have a lot of fun working there. But I think what's most exciting is what's happening in the next 5 years. Hopefully we're going to be able to solve some of these challenges that we talked about today. I'm sure many, many more challenges will arise, which is quite exciting as well. But now I'm going to put it to you guys. All of this started from a little 3D printed train that our co-founder saw 5 years ago. So I kind of want to put it to you as what's going to be your spark to take you on your own journey.
Thank you very much for listening. If you guys have any more questions, come find us at the workshop.